This isn't a group thing, Ethan. I'm asking you out. For a second, I honestly thought Mason was messing with me. Not because he looked amused. He didn't. That was the problem. He was standing too close beside my table, one hand resting near my untouched beer, his eyes locked on mine like he'd been waiting all night to say it. My chest tightened so fast I almost forgot how to breathe. You're serious? I managed. Mason glanced toward the entrance of the sports bar, then back at me. Yeah. Noah was supposed to be there. My brother had texted 10 minutes earlier saying he was running late, which should have made the whole thing less complicated. Somehow, it made it worse. Mason had been Noah's best friend since college. He'd spent holidays at our house, helped me move apartments, fixed my car twice and refused to take money. He was practically family, and now he was asking me out behind my brother's back. I let out a nervous laugh, hoping he'd laugh too. He didn't. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. You're not. His voice dropped lower. Calm. Certain. That somehow made my stomach flip harder. I looked down at the table, because looking at him felt dangerous. Mason always looked good in an unfairly normal way. Dark work jacket. Sleeves pushed up. A little grease still caught near one knuckle from the shop. Nothing dramatic. Nothing I hadn't seen 100 times before. Except now every detail felt louder. Why? I asked. His eyebrows pulled together. Why what? Why me? The question came out more honest than I wanted. Mason went quiet. Behind us, someone cheered at the game playing over the bar. Glasses clinked. A server squeezed past our table. Normal noise. Normal night. Nothing about me felt normal. Mason leaned closer, just enough that I caught the clean, faint scent of soap and motor oil. Because I've wanted to for a while. My pulse jumped. I told myself he could mean anything by that. Maybe he was curious. Maybe he was lonely. Maybe this was one of those decisions people made and regretted the next morning. Noah would lose his mind. Mason's jaw shifted slightly. I know. You're his best friend. I know that too. Then why are you doing this? For the first time, his confidence cracked. His eyes dropped to my mouth for half a second before returning to mine. It was quick. I still noticed. Of course I noticed. Because pretending I don't think about you isn't working anymore. Every thought in my head disappeared. I stared at him. He stared back. Neither of us moved. Then my phone buzzed against the table. Noah's name lit up the screen. Mason looked down at it, and the moment snapped tight between us. I reached for my phone too quickly and nearly knocked over my glass. Mason caught it before it tipped, his fingers brushing mine. The touch lasted maybe 2 seconds. It felt longer. He's 5 minutes away, I said. Mason slowly let go of the glass. Then I need an answer. My throat went dry. I should have said no. That would have been smart. Clean. Safe. Instead, I heard myself whisper, "What exactly are you asking?" Mason held my gaze. Dinner. Friday night. Just you and me. I swallowed. And Noah? A small tension crossed his face. He can't know yet. The word yet hit harder than it should have. Before I could answer, the front door opened behind him. Noah's voice carried across the bar. There you guys are. Mason stepped back immediately. Too quickly. Like we'd been caught doing something wrong even though nothing had happened. Not yet. Noah dropped into the chair beside me and started complaining about traffic. Mason nodded at the right moments, acting completely normal. I tried to do the same. Then, under the table, Mason's knee touched mine. He didn't move it, and neither did I. By the time Noah finished his second beer, I had convinced myself Mason's knee touching mine meant nothing. The table was small. The bar was crowded. People bumped into each other all the time. That explanation worked for almost 30 seconds. Then Mason shifted in his chair, and instead of moving away, his leg pressed a little more firmly against mine. I looked at him. He was listening to Noah complain about a client who kept changing the plans for his kitchen remodel, nodding like everything was normal. But his eyes flicked toward me. Just once. Long enough to let me know it was not an accident. My heart started pounding again. You good? Noah turned toward me. I grabbed my glass, even though it was empty. Yeah, just tired. Mason's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. More like he knew exactly why I was distracted. I hated him a little for that. Mostly, I hated how much I liked it. When we finally left, Noah walked ahead to take a call. Mason and I ended up a few steps behind him in the parking lot. Cold air hit my face, but it did nothing to calm me down. You never answered me, Mason murmured. I kept my eyes on Noah's back. This is not exactly the time. Friday. His shoulder brushed mine as we walked. 7:30. You are assuming I am saying yes. You stayed. I looked at him. At the bar. With your knee against mine. Heat climbed up my neck so fast it was embarrassing. Mason held my gaze for one quiet second, then opened the passenger door of Noah's truck for me like he had not just completely ruined my ability to think. I spent the ride home staring out the window. The worst part was, I had wanted Mason for years. Not in some dramatic, impossible love way. It had started with small things. He remembered I hated pickles and always took them off my burgers before handing me the plate. He showed up when my car died during a snowstorm and stayed until the tow truck came, even though Noah told him I could handle it. Once, after I bombed an interview, Mason brought coffee to my apartment and sat on the floor with me for 2 hours without trying to fix anything. He just stayed. I had told myself he did those things because I was Noah's little brother. That was the safe explanation. Mason was kind. Mason was reliable. Mason treated everyone like they mattered. Except I had seen him with other people. He did not remember their coffee orders. He did not look at them the way he looked at me in that bar. The next morning, I woke up after barely sleeping and found a message waiting. Mason, no pressure. But I meant what I said. I read it 4 times. Then Noah walked into the kitchen wearing sweatpants and reached past me for the coffee. Mason seemed weird last night. My stomach dropped. Weird how? Noah shrugged. Quiet. Distracted. He glanced at me. Did something happen before I got there? No, the lie came too quickly. Noah stared for a second, then let it go. I spent the rest of the day finding reasons not to answer Mason. He was older. He was my brother's best friend. He could change his mind. He could decide I was not worth the trouble. By 6 that evening, I had almost convinced myself silence was the smarter choice. Then another message appeared. Mason, if you want me to forget I asked, tell me. I will. I stared at the screen until my chest started to hurt. Finally, I typed, Friday works. His reply came less than a minute later. An address. A small Italian place across town. Then one more message. Mason, wear the green jacket. You look good in it. I stopped breathing for a second, because I had only worn that jacket once around him. 3 months ago. And apparently, he remembered. Friday night, Mason parked a block away from my apartment. That was the first thing that made the whole situation feel real. Not the restaurant. Not the green jacket he had remembered. The fact that he had already thought about where Noah might see his truck. I stood on the sidewalk with my hands shoved into my pockets, watching him lean across the cab to open the passenger door. You always pick people up this far from their building? I tried to make it sound like a joke. Mason looked at me for a second too long. Only when their brother might throw me through a wall. I laughed, but neither of us really did. The silence after it stayed between us while I climbed in. The restaurant was small, warm, and far enough across town that I did not recognize anyone. Mason had reserved a booth near the back. Of course he had. He took my coat before I sat down and folded it beside him instead of handing it to the host. It was such a simple thing, but it made my chest feel tight. You planned this, I murmured. He picked up the menu. I know how dinner works. You know what I mean. His eyes lifted to mine. Yeah, I planned it. I looked away first. For the first 20 minutes, we talked about safe things. Work. Noah. The old Camaro Mason had been restoring at the shop. I started relaxing until the server smiled at us and asked, celebrating anything tonight? First date. Mason answered before I could speak. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. The server grinned. I thought so. After she walked away, I stared at him. You could have said no. Why would I? Because someone might hear you. Mason leaned back against the booth, studying me. Does that bother you? No, the answer came too fast. His mouth curved slightly. Good. My face was burning, so I reached for my water. Mason moved at the same time, and our hands touched around the glass. I expected him to pull away. Instead, his thumb rested against my knuckle. Just lightly, like he was waiting to see what I would do. I did nothing. That was the problem. I could not keep telling myself this was curiosity when he looked at me like that. When he remembered my jacket. When he had chosen a place where we could sit for 2 hours without rushing. When his hand was still touching mine, and he did not seem nervous about it at all. How long? I finally asked. His thumb went still. How long what? How long have you wanted to ask me out? Mason's expression changed. Not much. Just enough. Longer than I should have. My stomach turned over. That is not an answer. He looked down at our hands, then back at me. Since last winter. I remembered last winter. My car had died during that snowstorm. Mason had waited with me in the freezing parking lot, wrapped his spare work coat around my shoulders, and kept checking my hands because he thought I was getting too cold. I had spent months calling that kindness. Why did you wait? His jaw tightened. Because Noah trusts me. And now? Mason's fingers slowly closed around mine. Now I am tired of pretending you are only his little brother. I forgot every smart thing I could have said. Outside the window, headlights passed over his face, then disappeared. For a second, neither of us moved. Then his phone started vibrating across the table. Noah's name lit up the screen. Mason did not let go of my hand when he answered. Mason glanced at Noah's name on the screen, then at me. His hand was still wrapped around mine. You going to answer that? I whispered. Probably. He did not move. The phone kept vibrating between us, loud against the wooden table. For one stupid second, I wondered if he was going to let it ring. If he was going to choose this moment over my brother. Then Mason exhaled and finally picked it up. Hey. His voice changed instantly. Casual. Normal. The voice Noah knew. I pulled my hand back, and the loss of contact felt sharper than it should have. Yeah, I know. Mason continued, looking at me while he listened. I got held up at the shop. The lie landed between us. I looked down at my plate. Noah said something that made Mason rub the back of his neck. No, I am not coming over tonight. I am exhausted. Another pause. Mason's eyes stayed on mine. Tomorrow. I promise. When the call ended, the restaurant suddenly felt too quiet. The shop? I asked. Mason placed the phone face down. It was easier. For who? His expression tightened. Ethan. No, really. For you? For me? Because it is definitely not easier for Noah. Mason leaned forward, forearms resting on the table. You think I do not know that? I think you are very good at acting like this is simple. It is not simple. Then what is it? The question came out louder than I intended. A couple at the next table glanced over. I lowered my voice. What are we doing? Mason went still. Not uncomfortable. More like he was deciding how honest to be. Having dinner. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. That is not what I meant. I know. His gaze dropped to my mouth again. This time, he did not look away quickly. My pulse started climbing. Then answer me. Mason stood and reached for my coat. Not here. The drive back was quiet. Rain had started tapping against the windshield, light but steady, and every red light felt longer than the last. He pulled into a dark side street near my apartment, but did not unlock the doors. For a moment, neither of us spoke. You asked what this is, he finally murmured. I turned toward him. Yeah. Mason's hand tightened around the steering wheel. It is me trying not to ruin the most important friendship I have. My chest sank a little. Then he looked at me, and failing to stay away from the person I have wanted for months. I forgot how to breathe. Mason, that is the truth. His voice was quieter now. You want more than that. I do not know what to give you yet. I am not asking for forever. Good. His eyes held mine. Because right now, I can barely think. The space between us changed. He shifted closer, slowly enough that I could have moved away. I did not. His hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed the edge of my collar like he was fixing it again. His knuckles grazed my jaw. My whole body went still. Tell me to stop, he whispered. I should have. Instead, I leaned in just enough to make his breath catch. We were inches apart. Maybe less. His eyes dropped to my lips. Mine did the same. Then my phone lit up in the cup holder. Noah, you home yet? Mason closed his eyes for half a second and leaned back. The moment broke so hard it almost hurt. I reached for the door. Ethan. I paused. Mason looked at me like he was about to say something that mattered. Then headlights turned onto the street behind us. Noah's truck. Mason unlocked the doors. Go, he whispered. I got out before my brother could see whose truck I had been sitting in. Noah was already inside when I reached the apartment. He stood near the window with his truck keys still in one hand, looking past me toward the street. Who dropped you off? My pulse kicked hard. I took off my jacket slowly, buying time. A co-worker. Noah turned. From the Italian place across town? I froze for half a second. That was enough. His eyes narrowed. I saw you getting out of a truck. Then why did you ask? Because I wanted to see if you would lie. The room went quiet. I could still feel Mason's knuckles against my jaw. Still hear him telling me to ask him to stop. Now my brother was standing 6 feet away, waiting for an explanation I could not give. It was just dinner, I muttered. Noah let out a short laugh. You drove across town for dinner with someone you will not name? Why do you care? Because you have been acting weird all week. He tossed his keys onto the counter. And Mason has been acting weird too. My stomach dropped. What does Mason have to do with anything? The question came out too fast. Noah noticed. Of course he did. He stared at me for a long second, then shook his head. Nothing. Forget it. But he did not forget it. Over the next 2 weeks, he started paying attention. Not openly. Noah was not subtle enough for that. He would walk into the kitchen and pause when Mason and I stopped talking. He would glance between us when Mason remembered my coffee order. He started inviting himself whenever Mason mentioned grabbing food. So Mason and I adjusted. We called our lunches errands. I brought coffee to the shop and told Noah I was nearby. Mason texted me after midnight, when he knew my brother was asleep. It should have felt exciting. Sometimes it did. Mostly, it felt like trying to breathe quietly in a room where someone was listening. One Saturday, Noah invited Mason over for dinner. Halfway through the meal, he started talking about setting Mason up with a woman from his office. She is funny. She is normal. She owns a condo. Mason kept his eyes on his plate. That is a strong sales pitch. You need someone stable. Noah pointed his fork at him. You work too much. You never date. Under the table, Mason's knee touched mine. It was light at first. Then it stayed. My chest tightened. Maybe he is already seeing someone. I offered before I could stop myself. Noah looked at me. You know something I do not. Mason's leg pressed closer. A warning or reassurance? I could not tell. No. I was kidding. Noah leaned back, watching both of us now. You two have gotten weirdly close. Ethan helps me with the shop's social media. Mason answered smoothly. Since when? A few weeks. That part was technically true. I had taken pictures of the restored Camaro once. Noah glanced from Mason to me. You hate cars. I like photography. You hate that too. I nearly laughed, mostly because panic was making me stupid. Mason reached for the bread basket at the same time I did. Our fingers brushed. Neither of us pulled away immediately. Noah stopped talking. Mason released the bread and sat back, but it was too late. My brother had seen it. His expression did not change much, just enough to make my stomach twist. After dinner, Mason stood near the door while Noah carried plates into the kitchen. You should go, I whispered. Mason's eyes held mine. Do you want me to? I opened my mouth, but Noah returned before I could answer. He looked between us, then folded his arms. Why are you two looking at each other like that? Looking at each other like what? Mason's voice stayed calm, but his shoulders had gone stiff. Noah glanced between us, like I interrupted something. My mouth went dry. Mason gave a small shrug and reached for his jacket. Ethan was telling me to stop making him work for free. That is not what I heard. You were in the kitchen. Mason pulled on his jacket. You did not hear anything. The answer was too sharp. Noah's expression changed immediately. For a second, I thought everything was about to come apart right there in the entryway. Then Mason looked at me once, quick and unreadable, before opening the door. I will see you Monday. He left without waiting for a response. Noah stared at the closed door. What was that? You were being weird. I was being weird. He turned toward me. You look like somebody caught you holding hands. My heart slammed against my ribs. We were not holding hands. Noah went quiet. I realized too late that I had answered a question he never asked. His eyes narrowed, but his phone rang before he could push further. I escaped to my room and shut the door, then stood there listening to my own breathing. Mason did not text that night. He did not text the next morning either. By Monday, I was angry enough to visit the shop without warning. The anger disappeared the second I saw him leaning against the front counter with another guy. The guy was younger, maybe my age, wearing a fitted navy coat and smiling like Mason had just told him the funniest thing in Chicago. Then he touched Mason's forearm. My stomach twisted. I hated how immediate it was. How stupid. Mason and I had gone to one dinner. We had almost kissed in his truck. That did not make him mine. The guy handed Mason a business card before leaving. As he passed me, he gave me a polite nod. Mason watched him go, then looked at me. You okay? Fine. I shoved my hands into my jacket pockets. I was nearby. You lived 20 minutes away. Traffic was good. His mouth twitched, but he did not smile. He was a customer. I did not ask. You were staring. I was not. Mason walked around the counter. Ethan. The way he said my name made me look at him. He asked for my number. My chest tightened. Good for him. I told him no. I tried to keep my face neutral. You do not owe me an explanation. Maybe I want to give you one. He stopped a few feet away. The shop suddenly felt too quiet, even with music playing somewhere in the back. Why? Mason looked tired. Not physically. More like he had spent the weekend fighting with himself and lost. Because you left dinner thinking I could still walk away from this. Can you? His jaw tightened. No, the word came out fast. Honest. It took all the air out of me. Mason stepped closer, lowering his voice. I tried to act normal around Noah. I tried not texting you. I tried telling myself that almost kissing you in my truck was a mistake. His eyes held mine. It did not feel like one. My pulse started pounding. Then what did it feel like? He looked down at my hand hanging between us. Slowly, giving me every chance to pull away, he wrapped his fingers around it. Real. His thumb moved once across my knuckles. And I do not want to go back to pretending it was not. I could not speak. Mason gave my hand a small squeeze, his expression suddenly less certain than I had ever seen it. Tell me I am not the only one. I stepped closer instead. The space between us almost disappeared. His breath caught. Then the bell above the shop door rang, and Noah's voice came from behind me. Am I interrupting again? Noah stood just inside the shop, one hand still on the door, his eyes fixed on where Mason's fingers were wrapped around mine. Mason let go so fast, it almost looked like the touch had burned him. That hurt more than it should have. No, I answered too quickly. You are not interrupting anything. Noah looked at me, then at Mason. The silence stretched. Mason cleared his throat and stepped back toward the counter. Ethan stopped by to ask about the Camaro. He hates cars. People can grow. Noah did not smile. He walked farther inside, dropping a set of keys on the counter. You left these at my place. Mason nodded once. Thanks. Nobody moved. I could feel the whole conversation we had been having hanging in the air between us, unfinished and suddenly embarrassing. Noah glanced at the business card on the counter. You hiring someone? Customer. Mason slid the card into a drawer. His voice had gone flat. Controlled. The same voice he used when something at the shop broke, and he did not want anyone to know he was angry. Noah turned to me. You heading home? In a minute. I can wait. You do not have to. His eyes narrowed. Apparently I do. Mason looked at me then. Just once. There was something in his face I could not read. Regret, maybe. Fear. Whatever it was, it made my stomach drop. You should go with him, he murmured. The words landed harder than they should have. 10 minutes earlier, he had been telling me he did not want to pretend anymore. Now he could not even look at me. I nodded like it did not matter. Right? Sure. The ride home was awful. Noah kept one hand tied around the steering wheel and waited until we were stopped at a red light before speaking. Did Mason do something? I stared out the window. What? You looked upset. I am fine. Ethan. He used the same voice he had when I was 16 and came home with a split lip after a fight. Protective. Suspicious. If he crossed a line, tell me. Guilt tightened in my chest. Noah trusted Mason. He trusted me. And I was sitting there lying to his face. He did not cross anything. Noah looked at me for a second too long. Then why do you keep defending him? I had no answer. At home, I texted Mason before I could talk myself out of it. Me. Did you mean what you said? The message showed as read almost immediately. No reply. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. By midnight, I had convinced myself I had misunderstood everything. Maybe real had only meant the moment. Maybe he had seen Noah and remembered what this could cost. Maybe dropping my hand had been the answer. The next morning, there was still nothing. By Wednesday, our usual routine had disappeared. No coffee waiting at the shop. No late-night messages. No random picture of some terrible repair job with a sarcastic caption. Mason canceled his basketball plans with Noah and claimed he had too much work. On Friday, I finally broke. Me. If you regret it, just say that. This time, his reply came immediately. Mason, I do not regret you. I regret putting you in the middle. I stared at the words until my vision blurred. Me. That sounds like the same thing. 3 dots appeared. Vanished. Appeared again. Then Mason, it is not. But I might lose my best friend, and you might lose your brother's trust. I do not know how to ask you to risk that. My chest tightened. Me. So you are deciding for me? No answer. That silence was worse than a rejection. Later that night, Noah knocked on my bedroom door and leaned against the frame. Mason canceled on me again. I kept my eyes on my laptop. Maybe he is busy. He has never been too busy 3 Fridays in a row. I said nothing. Noah watched me carefully. Did something happen between you two? I looked up. For the first time, the lie would not come. And Noah saw it. Noah kept watching me from the doorway. Ethan. I closed the laptop. Mason did not do anything wrong. That is not what I asked. His voice stayed calm, which somehow made it worse. Did something happen? I looked at the floor. The truth sat right there in my throat, but I could not force it out. It is complicated. Noah let out a slow breath. That usually means yes. I need to handle it. Handle what? I stood too quickly. I said I need to handle it. He stared at me, hurt flashing across his face before he covered it. Fine. Noah stepped back. But if this is about Mason, do not make me find out from someone else. The door clicked shut behind him. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds. Then I grabbed my jacket. The shop was closed when I arrived, but the lights in the back were still on. Mason was alone beside the Camaro, wiping his hands on a rag. He looked up when the door opened. Surprise crossed his face. Then caution. Ethan, do not. I locked the door behind me. Do not act like this is a normal visit. Mason set the rag down. I was not going to. You stopped answering me. I answered. You gave me half an answer and disappeared. His jaw tightened. I was trying to give you space. I did not ask for space. The words echoed through the empty shop. Mason looked away. That made something inside me snap. Look at me. He did. Slowly. His eyes looked tired. You told me it felt real? I continued. You held my hand. You told me you could not walk away. Then Noah showed up, and you dropped me like I was something you regretted. That is not what happened. That is what it felt like. Mason crossed the space between us, then stopped a few feet away. Close, but careful. I dropped your hand because Noah was standing there. Exactly. Because he is my best friend. His voice cracked slightly around the last word. And you are his brother. I know what this could do. You keep deciding what it could do without asking what I want. Silence. Mason looked down at my hands. What do you want? My heart started pounding. The question was simple. The answer was not. I want you to stop treating me like I am a mistake you are trying to manage. His face tightened. You are not a mistake. Then stop acting like I am. Mason took one more step. I am scared. That stopped me. He rubbed a hand over the back of his neck, eyes dropping for a second. I am scared I lose Noah. I am scared he thinks I took advantage of his trust. I am scared you wake up one day and realize this was not worth blowing up your family. And I am scared you are going to keep hiding behind him until there is nothing left between us. His eyes came back to mine. There is something between us. You know there is. Neither of us moved. The shop hummed quietly around us. Mason's hand lifted, then stopped halfway, like he was asking permission without saying it. I closed the distance myself. His fingers touched my wrist. Warm. Careful. I do not want to go back to normal, he whispered. Good. My voice barely worked. Neither do I. Mason's hand slid into mine. This time, he held on. I do not want you to be a secret forever. Then do not make me one. He looked at me for a long second, then brought his other hand to my cheek. His thumb rested there, barely moving. This is real to me. I leaned closer. Then stop running from it. Mason did. Our first kiss was brief. Soft. Almost uncertain. But when we pulled apart, his forehead stayed against mine. Neither of us spoke. We did not need to. Then a voice came from the dark doorway behind us. You have got to be kidding me. Noah stood there, staring at our joined hands. Noah did not move. Neither did Mason. His hand stayed around mine, warm and steady, even with my brother staring at us like the floor had dropped out beneath him. For once, I did not pull away either. How long? Noah's voice was quiet. That was worse than yelling. Mason looked at me before answering. A few weeks. Noah laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. A few weeks. He stepped inside and let the door close behind him. So every dinner, every time you came over, every weird excuse. Not every time. I cut in. Ethan. No. You asked. My heart was pounding, but I kept holding Mason's hand. He asked me out. I said yes. We did not know how to tell you. Noah's eyes dropped to our joined fingers. So you decided lying was easier. We decided wrong, Mason admitted. He did not hide behind me. He stepped forward, but he did not let go. This was my idea. If you are angry, be angry at me. Noah's jaw tightened. You are my best friend. I know. He is my brother. I know that too. Then how did this happen? Mason glanced at me, and something in his face softened. Slowly. That answer took some of the fight out of the room. Not all of it. Noah looked at me again. Do you actually want this? The question hurt more than I expected. Like I was still 16. Like he thought I had been talked into something. I straightened. Yes. My voice shook, but the word did not. I do. Noah rubbed both hands over his face and turned away. For a long moment, the only sound was the old wall clock near the office. Then he looked back at Mason. If you hurt him, I will forget we have been friends for 10 years. Mason nodded. Fair. That was not permission. I know. And I am still furious. I know that too. Noah looked exhausted. I need time. He walked toward the door, then stopped beside me. You should have told me. I was scared. His expression shifted. Softer, just for a second. You are still an idiot. Runs in the family. He almost smiled. Almost. Then he left. The next 4 days were quiet. Noah barely spoke to Mason, and Mason gave him space. But he did not disappear from me. He texted every morning. He brought coffee to my office on Tuesday and stood beside my desk in front of everyone instead of waiting outside. On Friday, Mason pulled up directly in front of my apartment. Not a block away. Right in front. I was halfway down the stairs when Noah opened his bedroom door. Date? I stopped. Yeah. He nodded once, eyes tired but calmer. Italian place again? Probably somewhere less stressful. That got a small laugh out of him. We walked outside together. Mason was waiting beside his truck, hands in his jacket pockets. He looked at Noah carefully. Hey. Noah folded his arms. Bring him home before midnight. Mason glanced at me. I cannot promise that. Mason, I am kidding. Noah shook his head, but the corner of his mouth moved. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something. Mason opened the passenger door for me. Before I climbed in, I reached for his hand. Right there on the sidewalk. Right in front of my brother. Mason looked down at our fingers, then at me. He squeezed once. Noah saw it. He did not look away. And for the first time since all of this started, neither did we.